Welcome to ThinkTech on OC16, Hawaii's weekly newscast on things that matter to tech and to Hawaii. I'm Jay Fidell.
And I'm Duke Oishi.
In our show this time, we'll cover a really interesting program we did at the Plaza Club on July 26th. It was called Herding the Cats, Building the Film Industry in Hawaii.
The program included two panels, one on the business of filmmaking and the other on the art. This week we'll cover the first panel, and next week we'll cover the second.
Before the first panel was seated, we saw a movie that Thomas Edison made with an early camera when he came to Hawaii in 1898. Here are some of the scenes from his movie. I guess you could say it was the very early beginning of the film industry in Hawaii.
Then we heard opening remarks from Senator Carol Fukunaga, who has supported the film industry for many years.
Thank you so very much to ThinkTech today for hosting this very dynamic forum. You know, I'm sorry I'm not able to join you in person, but through technology, we can always join from wherever and whenever we can join you electronically. I really am excited that ThinkTech has organize this particular forum, especially since we have had a number of very innovative approaches that have been proposed in the last several years. We have had tax incentives, we've had grant programs, we've had very creative ideas on how we can build and incent film infrastructure. And as we look at the opportunities for Hawaii going forward, I can think of no better industry that can complement as well as support the tech industry, because so many of the jobs in film and media are really related to technology as well as high-speed broadband and all the other kinds of things that'll really make Hawaii one of the best places to work as well as create productions.
The first panel was moderated by local independent filmmaker Jason Lau of Talk Story Productions and included Walea Constantinau, Honolulu Film Commissioner, Dawson, Hawaii Film Commissioner, Attorney Bill Meyer, Jeanne Ishikawa of the Hawaii Teamsters, and Rann of Hawaii Film Partners.
The discussion by the first panel was intense and got right into the question of what resources we have and what additional resources we may need to build a competitive and successful film industry.
As many of you know, I head up the Hawaii Film Office, and it is part of the Creative Industries Division of the State Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, which is our infamous acronym of DBED. Just want to acknowledge our Creative Industries Division Administrator, Georgia Skinner, who's here. And our former Maui Film Commissioner for 8 years, Benita Brazier, who is now working at the State Film Office, and Benita is here with us, and has been invaluable in the State Film Office in helping us, as she just put it a minute ago, keep all the balls in the air. And it is really, just to give you a sense of what the Film Office does, we are the central coordinating agency for filming across the Hawaiian Islands, and responsible for all of the public lands and ocean waters that are under the jurisdiction of the state. We process probably in the neighborhood of 1,300 to 1,500 film permits a year, and we are also the managers, administrators, if you will, of the refundable production tax credit known as Act 88. That is the credit that has been in place since 2006. And since that time has generated well over $1 billion in economic activity for the state. It is, most of you are familiar with it, but it offers 15% back to productions for all of their production expenditures on the island of Oahu, and 20% back for everything on the islands, on the neighbor islands, everything that is subject to Hawaii tax. And as it took us probably about 4 years to get the incentive through. And we are very indebted to our legislators for passing the law, and actually to our administration at the time for signing it into law. And the first full calendar year, we had, in addition to the hit show Lost on Oahu and Forgetting Sarah Marshall on Oahu, we had a major feature film on every island throughout the state. Indiana Jones on the Big Island, Pirates 3 on Maui and Molokai, and Tropic Thunder on Kauai. So we know that the tax credit is doing well. There have been attempts to enhance the credit, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But knowing that mid-90s we were generating probably $50 million in economic activity every year for the state, and now we are hovering around $200 million in direct expenditures with regard to film production. We have in the neighborhood of maybe 400 productions a year that range from feature films to television series to national commercials and still shoots, and a lot of documentary film as well. So we've come a long way since the 90s. We have, in my estimation, a very competitive credit on the books now, and I think that one of the things that was demonstrated clearly in 2006 is what is possible when we join forces and we work together with one voice for the industry that we all love and support. And that's what brought us our Act 88. And we are bound and determined to protect it, preserve it, and enhance it if we can, but maintaining that level of fiscal responsibility for the state, and being able to continue to provide stability and predictability for the industry, which the industry must have in order to continue. So the only other thing I think I would add to that is that the Film Office at the state level is, it's been through some challenging times. We lost 75% of our staff in 2009 due to the statewide layoffs, and we're just starting to build back the office full force. We depend very much on our county film offices, and they depend very much on us. And together, as film offices of the Hawaiian Islands, we work very, very hard in an effort to support this industry, and it's important if we're going to bring more productions here and take us to the next level.
Okay, so that's like, what I heard from you is about $200 million being spent every year, approximately, for film. That's all right?
Mm-hmm.
$200 million. Can you tell us how that fits into the rest of the industries that are in Hawaii?
Well, I think it's, we're certainly not at the level of our big boy industries, as in the military and tourism.
Sure.
But I think that we're demonstrating on a statewide level that we are a force to be reckoned with, and that this industry is critically important to Hawaii in terms of what it does to promote the visitor industry, in terms of what it does in providing skilled, well-paying jobs, but protecting our important assets and the resources that make Hawaii special to us. So we're up there. We're not there yet.
It's a big pie. It's a big industry, and we have Walea here. So can you speak up just a little bit? I know Honolulu, Hawaii, Oahu is probably the largest sector. Is that right?
Safe to say that about 70% or so of production statewide occurs on the island of Oahu. And just to dovetail on what Donnie was saying about the impact that the industry has, it's such a unique industry in that in order for them to make their project, they have to spend all of the money in that budget. And when they spend that money in the budget, they do it in a very different way than other industries do. They reach out to many, many different vendors, businesses, and interact on a whole different level with the business community. So one of the ways that we look at the film industry is that it really creates incredible opportunities for so many other businesses and an incredible diversity of businesses. Just one example of that is we looked at in the third year of Lost, how many businesses had that particular production interacted with, and it was over 1,200 different local companies. So the impact of the business is not just the dollars. It certainly supports visitor industry infrastructure, but you have to take into account the exposure value of not only the talent, the stories, the music, but also the opportunities that it creates for businesses.
Let's hear from our producer, Rann. Rann, you and I produce things. What was your legal bill last year? Because I'm going to ask Bill here the next question, but I wanted to hear from you. No, I mean, seriously though, we spend a lot in different industries. How many different industries do you think, or vendors do you think we support when we do a film?
When we filmed You May Not Kiss the Bride, which, can I say, is opening on August 31. It's been a long road, and I would like everybody to go see it. If you want to support the local film industry, go see it. It'll be at Consolidated Theaters. Check your listings, and I'll guarantee you that you will laugh out loud at least once. I'll give you double your frowns back. Promise. But anyway, on any one day on the set, like when we were filming You May Not Kiss the Bride, we had 150 to 200 people on set. And we had dozens and dozens and dozens of ancillary businesses that we interacted in, from people who sold greens, that's plants, to the caterers, to of course legal bills, to restaurants, to costume designers, to the local shops. We even had honey wagons.
What's a honey wagon?
Does anybody know what a honey wagon is? That's my favorite.
We know what the honey is, but tell us what
honey wagon are the porta potties. Anyway, those are very important on us.
They're very important.
But anyway, so that's the one thing. That's why many states around the country are working very hard to cultivate a film industry, and I hope that Hawaii one day can grow up to actually have a film industry. We've got a lot of film activity, but we'd like to see a real industry develop, because there's a plethora of ancillary businesses that are supported through this one industry. There are people that make their living, a very good living, nothing but supporting the film industry. So yes, very important.
So that leads me to Jeanne here, who represents kind of labor. She's from the Teamsters, but more or less, I want you to speak more about how many employees do you think, do you have any idea? In any one production, or what is the largest production? Put it this way, what is the largest production you think Teamsters has been on in Hawaii?
Recently, I would say the largest one would have been Pirates, because on that one we probably employed 100+ drivers. In the past, if you look historically, it would have been Jurassic Park, and on that one we had 180 drivers on that show, because we were on Kauai and we were on Oahu, and things had to be shuttled back and forth, so there was a lot of movement between islands. So it depends on whether you're talking about on Oahu or on,
Okay,
islands.
but that's just the drivers, right?
Correct.
And that's just, as you know, this is only a small part of the budget. We're talking about the rest of the IA, all the other unions that we need to deal with. Any estimate on what that is like?
I wouldn't be able to comment. I think that we've provided those numbers to the state when we've done studies, but I wouldn't know it off the top. Yeah.
Okay, but that's $200 million or so. It gets spent down. Majority of that goes out to what we call below the line, which is all the things that all the people who have to actually make the film.
Correct.
So the majority of that money goes out to basically everybody's neighbors here who are working in Hawaii.
Right.
And Bill, my legal bill was really high last year, but I'm not blaming you. But let me just say that we were in the six figures in my legal, and that's just normal for us, and that's what we do. But tell us about what it's like. You're one of the cooler cats that we have here because he plays drums and he's the music guy. So I like Bill because he's the cool cat, and I'm always trying to herd him to work on things with me. But let's hear about maybe what's it like on the studios that are coming to town. What are they looking for? How can we do more of those projects? And how much of a reach is it to everybody here in this room, everybody from vendors to their neighbors? What can studios do, and how can we make that happen?
Thanks, Jason. First comes the legal disclaimer. The opinions I am about to share with you are mine and mine alone and should not be attributed to any of my clients or anyone that I may have assisted in this last legislative session.
Okay, now that out of the way, Bill. The gloves are off, Bill. We haven't got to that special other legislation that we all know about. But
Part two.
Part two. Let's go with this other stuff.
Seeing how today's Mick Jagger's 69th birthday, I thought an appropriate title for today might be "You Can't Always Get What You Want."
But you get what you need, though.
And sometimes you don't even get what you
Oh, man.
Okay, so I'm going to share perspective from the larger studio's viewpoint. Late last year, the state of Hawaii reached out, part of their film office, and asked some of the major players, what would it take to have a meaningful presence in Hawaii? Not the occasional show, but what are we going to do to actually build an industry? And industry huddled and came back with a proposal that found its embodiment in some of the legislation that was introduced this last session. The reality is that tax incentives are a part of the DNA of the industry nowadays, and there's no way around it. The genesis goes back to the early 1990s for tax incentives. Back then, California, Los Angeles was the land of milk and honey. Virtually all of the production work was done there. Canada saw what was going on and said, we would like a piece of that pie. So they started deploying incentives pursuant to a long-term comprehensive plan that was intended to lure productions from the United States, and they were very successful. They started pulling somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 billion a year of production activity away from the United States.
From the discussion, it seemed clear that the members of the industry need to work more closely together. It also seemed clear that the government needs to do more to provide resources and to incentivize and support the growth of the industry. Although there is an obvious need for an industry trade association, there is no one such trade association that now represents the industry.
All in all, the programs show that we have many talented people in our film community, and we have real prospects to be a film state, but that we have miles to go before we can herd the cats and make film a serious part of our economy. Let's all encourage and support that effort.
The recent Descendants movie was just one small story. There are so many others. We have only begun to tell the stories of Hawaii, and how better to tell them than in the extraordinary medium that is sweeping the world as never before. Film, right here, right now. World-class movies made right here in Hawaii.
As an early adopter state, Hawaii adopted film early on, as you could see from the Edison footage. And since then, it's been a great backlot for Hollywood. Now it's time for Hawaii to come into its own, not only as one of the world's great shooting locations, but as a filmmaking community in its own right. Can we do that? You bet we can. We can and should, and some say we must. And now let's take a look at our ThinkTech calendar of events going forward.
ThinkTech's 4 to 5 p.m. drive time radio series on KGU 760 AM continues this week. Tune in to 760 AM Wednesdays for Tech with me, Jay Fidell, Thursdays for Asia in Review with David Day, and Find Out Fridays with Kayla Rosenfeld at 4 p.m. And raise your awareness on ThinkTech Radio.
On August 23rd, the Hawaii Venture Capital Association and ThinkTech will present a luncheon program called Keeping Up with the Jones, ACT. Is it still relevant to Hawaii's economy? The program will feature a number of panelists familiar with life on the waterfront who will discuss how the ACT affects Hawaii and what we should do to improve the way it works. Sign up for these programs on hvca.org. And now, here's Bill Spencer, president of the Hawaii Venture Capital Association, with this week's Spensation.
The thing about the article a couple days ago in the Star Advertiser, reporting that the state auditor had now found that there was no sign of a benefit to the state by virtue of 221.
You mean Sean Howe?
I thought it was a state auditor.
Sean works for the auditor.
Touche.
I don't think that tax credits like 221 will ever be granted investors again in Hawaii. And a lot of it has to do with the urban legend and mythologies that plagued the program ever since the beginning. For example, in that Star Advertiser article, once again, they claim that the purpose of 221 was to attract businesses from outside Hawaii to Hawaii. And that simply wasn't the case. It was to provide capital for businesses in Hawaii. They also stated, as they state again and again, that the tax credits were for the businesses. Businesses did not get tax credits. Investors got tax credits. And it just confounds me that these, very simple things about 221 are continuing to be misconstrued. To say that that there was no benefit, again, is premature. It takes companies, look at my company, 6 years just to get the permits to do our business. I still contend that 221 was effective pump priming. It's too early to judge whether our tech sector has really gone away or it's just hibernating for lack of capital and people are bootstrapping their way. I do think we will see some benefits, but we have to be patient and not so quick to judge as the paper and the auditor have done. Not every business that somebody invests in is going to be a home run. But I think there's still a good chance that we'll see some success stories come out of this, and you just have to bear with it and be patient.
And here's our co-working entrepreneurs, Richung Fujihira and Tony Stanford, to keep us current on their latest adventures at the Box Jelly.
This week, we have been continuing moving forward. We ran into a few snags, but as anything, such is life. But I finally got the receipt on the new polygal, so that's coming in, so that should be done soon. We're at 85% now being completed.
And the AC guy, Matt, miraculously is appearing back from his 2-week vacation where he just disappeared. 2 weeks, disappeared.
It's okay, we won't drop a name though, that's okay.
Or maybe we should.
No.
Okay.
But we have all the AC units at the place right now, not installed, but they're sitting there, so we have them. So it's all about the baby steps.
And we have Nest thermostats.
Nest thermostats. If you don't know what that is, I'll let you look that up. Second, we've been working with Kailua. This has been a little bit of a baby steps is a good word to say. This contract that we got, we're working with it. It was first written up in our name, so we had to move that to the Box Jelly because what's the point of having an LLC if you don't sign it as an LLC? Would you say?
That's why we have limited liability in the form of corporation.
There you go. So, things like that we're working on, so we're moving forward with that. We're having a lawyer look at that with us.
Yeah, and the accelerator.
Ah, yes, please, touch.
Yeah, so we've been working with Accelerator, building key partners. I will not name any names, but they're good. We have an intern flown in from the mainland, and she's really young. She's what, like,
She's a senior in high school.
so like maybe like 16, 17?
Yeah, but I mean, it's if I was as half as smart as she was at that age, I mean, we would already have the box jelly open. We would be in the mainland and going over to China by now.
Oh yeah, I'm very, very impressed. So Tiffan, thank you.
Thank you.
We salute you. Jay, we love you. But lawyers, oh my God. It takes a long time. Back and forth, back and forth. Details, reading little things and like random stuff. So
This is the experience that we've learned going through and working with contracts, and this is how we move forward. So, on that note, as always, the Box Jelly is the place to work,
a place to meet.
a place to build.
Theboxjelly.com.
Thank you.
Work the way you live.
I'm Duke Oishi. Aloha, everyone. Of ThinkTech. But first, we want to thank our underwriters.
Thanks to the Scheidler Family Foundation, which supports a number of educational, cultural, and charitable organizations, including ThinkTech.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Miko on Maui and Telco on the Big Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company, and CEO of CBI Polymers, a tech company in Hawaii.
The High Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Okay, Duke, that wraps up this week's edition of ThinkTech. Remember, you can watch ThinkTech on OC16 several times every week. Can't get enough of it, just like Duke does. For additional times, check out oc16.tv.
You bet, Jay. For lots more ThinkTech videos and for underwriting and sponsorship opportunities on ThinkTech on OC16, visit thinktechhawaii.com. Be a sponsor or a volunteer and help us reach Hawaii.
I'm Jay Fidell. Thanks so much for joining us on ThinkTech. You can watch this show throughout the week and tune in next Sunday evening for our next important weekly episode.
I'm Duke Oishi. Aloha, everyone.